Hey guys, in this video we're going to be starting Target D. So 61 Mastery Learning Objective is, I can find the base area and volume of prisms and cylinders by applying the correct area and volume formulas. So right here at the top you're going to see that all our volume formulas for rectangle, triangle, and circle are right here. So if you have a highlighter just so that you want to make sure those stand out to you, the area of a rectangle, to review, is length times width. The area of a triangle is 1/2 times the base times the height. So sometimes in words you can write it like that. You can see 1/2 times b times h. B just represents base, h represents our height. And then we have the area of our circle, which is pi times r squared. All right. Radius is half of the circle. So note here, our radius is only half. Sometimes they do give you the diameter. So diameter would be the full length from one side of the circle through the center all the way to the other side. So basically it's 2 times that radius to give us our diameter. So looking at our first example here, it's asking us to find the area of a rectangle. So hopefully these are more of just a review of these formulas, but they are up there in case you forgot them. And I know we've dealt with area in our previous units before. So kind of just a review of trying to find our area and volume and how these shapes are all similar. So the first example says find the area of the rectangle. Area of our rectangle is length times our width. So therefore one of our sides, our length, could be 6. Doesn't really matter which one you say is the length and width, because obviously you can rotate our figure. So as long as you're multiplying each side, you are multiplying the length and the width. So 6 times 15. If we multiply that together, if you have your calculator, you need it, you can go ahead and multiply there. Just want to show you 6 times 15 is going to give us 90. Another thing to keep in mind is when we are dealing with area. Area have units squared. So since our units are in feet, our units here in our answer are going to be feet squared. So make sure when you are dealing with area, all your units are squared. Finding the area of a triangle, I'm going to be using this formula up here of 1/2 times our base times our height. So therefore 1/2, so our A is going to equal 1/2 times our base, which is 14, times our height. So now the height is that segment that typically is drawn, and it's perpendicular to the base. So perpendicular means it creates that 90 degrees, which is why we see that little box right there. So that's how you know that 5 is the height of our triangle. So therefore we're going to multiply that by the height. And we can go ahead and plug that into our calculator as well. So if you do that 1/2, biggest thing is to make sure you tab out of that the denominator before you multiply by the 14 and the 5. So make sure that you're not in that denominator. Sorry. And again, area has units. We don't know what units these were in, so I'm actually just going to write units squared, just so we get in the habit of always having our units in our answer. Example number 2, we want to find the area of the circle. So looking at the above formula, area of a circle is pi times r squared. So again, the radius is half that circle. So our pi, I'm just going to go ahead and bring that down. Kind of treat it like a constant there, like a coefficient in front of our variables. So don't really do anything with it yet. So just bring your pi straight down. Our radius is half the circle. So notice it goes from the center to one point on the circle. That's going to be 9. And we want to square that. So remember, 9 squared does not mean 9 times 2. It means 9 times 9. And if you need your calculator to reassure yourself, 9 squared is 81. We're going to treat that pi kind of like our variable here. And we're going to say 81 pi centimeters squared. In case any of these examples asks you to round, you do have a pi button on your calculator. So if you want to type in 81 and then type in pi, what you're going to do is actually click that pi button, and if you see my little cursor over here, it's like one button next to the H. You click on that pi button, and there's actually kind of a couple of features that you can select. We want pi, which is already that first one selected, so you can go ahead and click enter. It knows you want to multiply 81 times pi. You click enter again, and then it does give you a more simplified answer. So in case you want to do that, you can also multiply by pi. So therefore, our more simplified answer would be 250, what did it say, 4.469. So I'm going to say 47, and that's still centimeters squared. All right, so those are just our areas. Area is two-dimensional, right? It's not 3D yet. When it's asking for volume, however, volume is going to be a 3D shape now. So volume does use part of the area equation in volume. So these area formulas aren't going to go away. So looking at our example number 4, we're dealing with the volume of a rectangular prism. So now we're dealing with a 3D shape, and our rectangular means that our base is a rectangle. So our formula here for our volume is simply going to be volume equals length times width times height. The other thing that's important is that our units for volume, since we have a 3D shape, our units are also going to be cubed. Because we're multiplying 3 terms together, you multiply their units, and therefore we see that units cubed. So looking at our first example, this little triangle here, it's 16 by 13 by 22 feet. We break it down in steps, right? What is the base area? Well, base means that it is the bottom, where you see those two like parallel sides, right? They're not going to touch. And this is going to be length times width. So our length times our width here is going to be 16 times 13. And 16 times 13 is going to be 208. And this is only going to be feet squared, right? Because we're dealing with 16 feet times 13 feet. Those were 2 feet, so then it's feet squared. Our volume now is still length times width, but also now times our height, because we have that 3D dimension there. So length times width we actually already solved for, right? That was what our answer up here was. Length times width, we already said that was 208. But now you need to multiply by the height. So the height, again, is going to be that segment that's connecting the two parallel bases that are never going to touch. And our height there is going to be 22. So now we have 208 times 22 to give us a volume of 4,576. This is volume now, so this is going to be feet cubed. All right? Looking at another example of a rectangular prism, again, the base is those parallel sides that are not going to touch, right? So this would be my base, as well as this would be my base. Kind of hard to imagine the 3D thing, but it's like the top and bottom that aren't going to touch each other. So area of a rectangle is length times width. So therefore 24 times 20. When we multiply those together, we do get 480. These I think were in centimeters, so centimeters squared. Again, because it's area and area have units squared. Once we are introducing volume, volume is that third other term, which is going to be that segment that's going from each base. So therefore, we're going to have that 480, right? That was our length times our width, times now our height, which is 10. And if you would like to write, length times width times height, and then you want to substitute in 24 times 20 times, what did we just say? The height was 10. That's the same thing. I just kind of saved myself that time and write that 480 because I've already multiplied the length and the width. But if that, you like to show each step, you are more than welcome to go ahead and show that, but you do not have to. All right, once I multiply all those terms together, either 24 times 20 times 10 or 480 times 10, I do get 4,800. This was in centimeters, and now this is volume, so therefore I have to use that cube on my units. All All right, I know I have my calculator there, but for the most part, we should all know how to multiply in our calculator by now. And if that's something that you do not know, please let me know. Last shape that we're going to try to find the volume is the volume of a cylinder. So same as the rectangular prism, you find the area of the base first. So it's going to be those two parallel sides, so the ones that aren't going to touch each other. So what you notice is that those two parallel sides of a cylinder would be this top circle and this bottom circle. The height is going to be whatever is that distance from or between those two parallel sides. So when we find the area of our cylinder here in example number 8, notice here that they gave us the distance all the way from one side to the other side. That right there is the diameter. So always make sure that you can identify the diameter and the radius, because the reason why I say that is that the equation is asking for the radius. The radius is half of that circle. So we only want from the middle to one side, right? We don't want that whole distance. So our radius here is going to be half of 10, which is 5. So that's going to be the radius we use in our base area formula here for our circle. So looking at our area, something to remember really quick is area of a circle is pi r squared. So if this is going to be area, I'm going to put up a circle there, is pi times r squared. Bring down my pi, kind of treat that like a variable for right now. I'm not going to touch it. My radius, however, we just solved was 5, and we are going to square that. 5 squared is 25. Again, that means 5 times 5, not 5 times 2. And I'm just going to put my pi at the end. So you could leave your answer just like that if you want to simplify it in decimal form, like if the directions tell you to round to the nearest, tenth or hundredth. You can simplify this. This is about 78.54 centimeters squared is for our area. With our volume, notice that our volume still has that pi r squared, right? This is the area formula, but now we have to multiply it by the height. So what we're going to do here is that this is going to be pi r squared times our height. The good part is that our pi r squared we already solved, right? And I'm going to use, just to be a little bit more exact, instead of rounding with my decimal right there, is I'm going to write 25 pi instead of my decimal answer. Our height then is going to be that the distance between those two parallel sides, right? That's where we have those perpendicular segments there. So our height in this case of our figure would be 12 centimeters. So I'm going to multiply that by 12. Now again, when we are substituting this in our calculator, treat that pi kind of like a variable. Don't touch it until the very end. So I'm only going to multiply my coefficients here, which would be 25 and 12. So 25 times 12 would give me 300. Don't forget my pi now. And again, if it doesn't ask you to round and just wants to be as exact as possible, then you could leave your answer just like that as 300 pi centimeters cubed. If it does ask you to round, you can go ahead and use that little pi button on your calculator. You could also multiply 3.14 and just round our decimal to the nearest tenth. So it'd be 942, what is that, 0.48 centimeters cubed. Okay, our last example here is finding the volume of the cylinder. So again, same steps. Find the area of our base here. So our base already gives us our radius, good. So this is going to be our radius. So no need to take half of it because it's already half of that circle. So our area equals pi r squared. Pi times our radius, which was 3, square it. So therefore we have 9 pi centimeters squared. If we want to round this, actually I'm going to keep it the same because I'm going to substitute that 9 pi into our volume formula anyway. So for me right now there's no need for me to write that decimal form. So volume here is pi times r squared, which we just solved right above, but now we have to multiply that by our height. So 9 pi times our height, which is 8, and 9 times 8 is 72 pi centimeters cubed now. And now if we would like to round, you can multiply 72 times pi, and that gives us about 195 centimeters cubed. All right, so go ahead and practice those area formulas, those volume formulas of a cylinder, of our rectangular prism, and then work on activity 60.1. Good luck.